Secret Beach Solutions, and today I want to talk about central bank digital currencies, CBDC. So this is the idea that instead of having a stable coin that a country such as the United States, it would release a digital currency. And then what I want to do is imagine what that's like and compare it to what I see existing in the world today. And let me point out, first of all, that I think that the goals of a government are not in line with the goals of the citizens of that country or the citizens of any other country. And you know, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And I don't even think I need to attempt to explain that. I would say that the only people who believe that the goals of a government are in line with their people are working for the government, or they are essentially working for the government as sort of a contractor because they've gotten a grant from the government, something like that. Okay, so. And I'm not knocking those people. I'm not saying that the government is bad, that government is bad. I'm simply saying that you have to begin with a reasonable premise if you want a reasonable outcome. And the reasonable premise here is that we are at cross purposes, okay? And that's okay. That's okay. But to say otherwise is disingenuous. Now, let's talk about specific currencies. This is Polygon, and this is a level 2 proof of stake currency built on top of Ethereum. Okay, so this is not Bitcoin. This is sort of proof of work, but not really. And so a Bitcoin purist would say that, no, this is not good enough. But I would say, well, maybe this is a little bit closer to what a CBT, a central bank, might offer. And I think you're going to quickly see that this is, in fact, nothing like they would want to offer. And I'm going to explain to you why. Because of people like myself, who again, we're at cross purposes, and so I would, if you give me something that I would want to use, then I'll use it. If you force me to use something, I will try to avoid using it, and if I do use it, I will see if there's a way I can use it to my benefit, not your benefit, being the government, okay? And again, I think that it's okay to speak this way. I think that it's naive and a waste of time to speak in some other way, okay? So right here we see Metamask. This is my Metamask, and this is one of my addresses in Metamask. Right, so I copied it to the clipboard. I could paste it here and search in this Explorer, right, and see all of my transactions. They're all public in this system, right? So you can see all of my transactions. And there's quite a bit of information that's disclosed here, right? You can see that it comes from me, and it goes to somebody else, right? And that somebody else might be a contract, or it might be a person. You also see the amount. You also, if this is a smart contract, you get kind of a description of what we've done. And as I've shown previously, you can embellish this with all sorts of information, all sorts of clues, all sorts of data about not only me, but I could actually even talk about you, right? So I can use this as a way to move beyond even our ideas of what a transaction is, and this is becomes more of a social network. Okay, so the U.S. government probably doesn't want their currency to be a social network, so you would have to keep me from doing these things that I do here, right? So the first thing is that this ID is in a non-custodial wallet, meaning I created the ID on my computer using Metamask here, and nobody other than me has the keys to that, right? So I understand, even though this isn't Bitcoin, even though this is Polygon, that nobody can take the money away from me, right? Nobody can freeze it. So, and those have huge AML, KYC ramifications. With a digital currency, you would imagine that if it comes out that I'm doing money laundering or am a terrorist or probably am speaking in a way, and again, you can speak through these things. I'm speaking in a way that is disruptive or whatever. The government might decide to take that away from me. So you can't have MetaMask. You can't have a wallet that you create on your own. If you click here, you would see, for example, that you can that it would allow you to create see where it says create account. That will add a new account. I can have hundreds of these, and in a central bank digital currency, the bank would give me my ID. I wouldn't be able to do it myself. There's a number of reasons. So the first reason, like I say, is that you would, if you deem me unworthy, and that might even mean I'm not a citizen of the United States, right? I mean, can I take this to Mexico and use it there? Can I use this for international trade, right? So I would say that you would be giving me my ID under a set of rules, and you could take it away at any second, right? And if you don't do that, then that opens up a lot of possibilities. One of the possibilities is that I can send a transaction to an address that's not real. And that might seem like a strange thing to do, but that's something that I do quite a bit. And I call these anchors. So I could send, in MetaMask, I could click send and send money to a word, to an idea, right? And then there's different ways that you could see that, right? So I could be saying something, right? For example, if a government agency is operating in a certain way and I would be critical of them, then I could say that just with this, and you can't stop that. Because why? Because if MetaMask or anything else in the system lets you create, any wallet, right, then the possibility of any meaningful, obviously unspendable or unspendable address would be possible, right? So the only way to not have these special addresses, or as I call them, anchors, would again be to completely restrict the ID here, right? The next thing you can't do, I would say, even if we now have restricted IDs, okay, you can't let us view the ledger in this way, right? Like nobody else would be, like maybe I would be able to see my transactions through your tool, but nobody else could, right? And certainly you wouldn't be able to say, I want to look at the latest block, right? In this system, even though this isn't Bitcoin, even though this seems to be a more controlled system, I can say, oh, I want to see this block right here that just happened. And in this block, we have 58 transactions. Well, I want to see those 58 transactions. And now I can begin to make sense of these transactions. And as you see, I mean, there's things you can read, right? Claiming in the gotchi lending, claim, use, stake with permission. Okay, so these are all based on smart contracts, and you can build your own smart contracts that can do all sorts of things. And one of them is to be able to say things, is to be able to, you know, I recently spoke about this paper, the soul-bound token, right? So you can begin to bind data to these, but you wouldn't want to do that with a central bank. So again, you're not going to be able to, so for many reasons, you're not going to be able to let us see these transactions, right? We would only be able to maybe see transactions to each other. For example, if I do business with somebody else, me using the ID that you, the United States government, gave to me and you could take away from me, then let's say that that person's in Mexico and they were also given an ID even though they're not a U.S. citizen, right? So when I see my transaction, I should be able to see them and their ID, but you wouldn't want me to be able to see their transactions, right? Because then, even though we don't have this level of visibility here, we could still create networks and data and emote information to each other. And again, we are at cross purposes. Your purposes are different from my purposes. So I'm going to immediately want to subvert the digital currency to favor me. And you're going to want to maintain control of the digital currency and have it favor the basically the government and I would say large investors who may even be well-meaning, who would find favor in a more top-down approach, whereas I am definitely bottom-up, right? So I hope this made sense. I hope it wasn't too long. That's just some of the issues.